Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Steve Mundell, Director of Product for Acquire, and I'm joined here this afternoon with two colleagues from Acquire's Technology Partner Network. From REFLEX, we have Michelle Carey, and from ARANZ we have Lorraine Tam. So what we'd like to talk about this afternoon is how a more global view of data management is able to give rise to addressing one of the visions that we hear a lot about today, and that's the connected mine. So Michelle has 20 years of experience in the industry and has worked with in a number of roles across specialist geochemistry and in a senior management. She's worked with organisations such as WMC Resources and BHP Billiton. So in her roles with IO Global and IMDEX, she has worked to deliver innovative technology solutions to the exploration and mining sector. In her current role as Global Manager of Integrated Solutions, she is leading the architecture and promotion of their end-to-end solutions. So welcome, Michelle. And from ARANZ we have Lorraine. Lorraine is a Senior Project Geologist with ARANZ. She graduated from the University of BC with a Bachelor of Science with honours. She has 10 years of experience in the industry, and prior to joining ARANZ in 2012, she worked as an exploration geologist across a number of deposit types in Canada and Mexico. So welcome, Lorraine. Okay, so the connected mine, what is it? What's it all about? So ultimately, we're a collection of technologies that work together to try to enable organisations to make decisions. And so the common buzzword around this is the decision support system. Okay, and so what a decision support system is just the collection of technologies that enable an organisation to make decisions, funnily enough. And so an organisation will arrange and architect the set of technologies that will allow them to make the best decisions. So when we think about making decisions, it's all about a process. It's a process with inputs and outputs. And so in our example here, we're in the mine planning and resource evaluation scenario, is that it's all about the observations and measurements. So the inputs, the observations and measurements, which form the control points which describe the resource. And the outputs are the geology, grade and metallurgical models on which decisions are made. And so as we're sort of hearing around the industry a lot, there's this search for better decisions and and the search for productivity and efficiency gains, is that it's leading to this, to borrow a term, an unbundling of the mining value chain. And so the net effect of this is that we end up with an ever-increasing number of inputs into the mine planning process. And so what this is doing is that it's putting an even greater focus on data management and the connectivity between systems so that organisations can realise the value of the data sooner. And so what that's leading to is really a change in the mainstream view of big applications, this process-centric view of data, the long time frames and the smaller number of inputs and outputs, to a more data-centric ecosystem of connected sensors and software that work together to provide the right data at the right time to the right people so that decisions can be made. And so this is, I guess, what we call a connected mine. And so it's not a technology, it's a way of working. Okay, so it's a way of working to enable organisations to make better decisions. It's also a way of working so that it can start to answer questions of, we've got all of this data coming in, how do we utilise it and utilise all of our historic data, all of this historic knowledge to make more timely and better decisions. And so this is all about connecting systems, of course, the connected mine. And we've been connecting systems for years, but it's the way that we connect systems that's been the problem. And the way that we have architected solutions in the past is to deliver to generic endpoints, and then it's up to the end user to finalise that connection. And while this is really simple and really flexible for the end user, ultimately what we're dealing with is a diminishing value of the data. And what I mean by that is that through each handover of the data is that you're losing more and more information through the process. So you're losing information through lost metadata, or you're losing through lost relationships or changes in structures. And so what was very valuable data at the start is a fraction of its worth at the end. And so ultimately, the value is also even further eroded by the fact that you can't really trust the results and you don't have access to all of that information. And so what we see in the future is that it's moving towards a more connected flow of data through the systems. And so this here is where you've got a managed process from end to end. And what that's all about is taking a more global look at data management. And instead of just trying to focus on our part of the problem, stepping back and working together to look at the entire value chain of information. So you think about a drill hole, it has a cradle and it has a use. Let's step back and work together to try and come up with the best solution for that entire flow. And what the ultimate outcome of doing that is that we're able to, as vendors, put our expertise into that and make sure we've got an even better result for the customer. The other impact of this is that we're able to apply good data governance. And data governance is a pretty heavy sort of word, but in its most simple form, it's sort of reducing this data manipulation or fiddling with the results that we commonly have to try and make data fit into the model. So that's what it's all about. So ultimately, the end product of this is trying to have more trusted information. So in our scenario, we've got 3 different themes. So we've got data acquisition, data consolidation, and we've got data analysis. So in the data acquisition theme, we have REFLEX, who's all about the sensing of the ground, into our IoT hub, those sorts of things there to bring the data together. In data consolidation, we have Gym Suite, which is all about the consolidation, the integration of the data, and making it live and available downstream for use in data analysis in systems such as Leapfrog. And so what I'd like to do now is introduce Michelle to kick off the story of the journey of the data.
Thanks, everybody. As Steve said, my name is Michelle Carey. I work for REFLEX Instruments, which is a division of Imdex Limited. A number of you standing out around the crowd have probably heard of REFLEX and used our products. As you know, we're the primary provider of survey instruments and core orientation tools. But what we've been doing over the last 3 or 4 years is really started to expand the suite of data that we collect around a drill rig. So sorts of things that you're probably starting to see from us are downhole geophysical tools like our Gamma, structural reading information's being collected now with our IQ logger. We're also, via our relationship with Olympus, delivering portable XRF data. So that's one of the big trends, is us increasingly taking more and more of the data that a geoscientist needs to make decisions around a drill rig. But the other really key thing that we've been doing is we've been IoT enabling all of these tools, okay? So what does that mean in practicality? It means now that if you're using a REFLEX instrument, then you're running it with some sort of application that will have a big green sync button on it. We're expecting that the sorts of people using our equipment in the field, they're drillers, they're geos, they've got a lot of other things on their mind, so they collect their data in the way they always have. They press a big green sync button, and then that data gets delivered into our cloud infrastructure, which we call REFLEX Hub IQ. So the question would be, well, why have we done that? What are the value propositions that we're trying to deliver to our clients? So one of the key ones is quality of that data. We've always been a big part of what we are is we're some of the best instruments in the field. We deliver quality data. But one of the things that we can do to enhance that is we can allow our users to do some of that quality control at the point of data collection, but we can also allow them to do some of that quality control within the REFLEX Hub IQ. And one of the reasons that we can do that comes back to a point that Stephen made, is that we deliver all of the metadata. For example, for a survey tool, we don't just deliver the dip and the azimuth, we deliver all of the other pieces of information about, if it's a magnetic tool, say the magnetic field and the magnetic dip, so that you can understand whether your tool's actually delivered quality data. So that's one of the value propositions. The next one that you need to think about is a chain of custody, right? We're all really familiar with the concept of chain of custody around our assay data, but what about the survey data that positions the ore within a block model in the first place? It's critical that you have a chain of custody around that as well, and we can provide that now by taking the information straight from the tool into REFLEX Hub IQ. Another thing is just the pure streamlining of that flow of data, right? We all know the way the information from these sorts of instruments traditionally has made its way into the database, into things like Gym Suite. There are pieces of paper involved, there are USB keys, there are emails to DBAs. It's not what you call streamlined. There are real productivity improvements that can be made just by delivering this data without people touching it. And then that leads on to the last point, which is, of course, if you want your data in real time, if you want to support decision making in real time, then you need to be able to deliver that data in real time. You can't do that with USB keys and carrier pigeons, right? You need to have an IoT cloud-like solution. So when you think about those value propositions that I just listed, you can hear how at least two of them really emphasise why it is that we need to have partners for collaboration in this process. When we talk about a chain of custody, we don't really expect that that chain of custody is into Reflex Hub IQ. That chain of custody has to go all the way into things like Gym Suite, where the data is stored, and then indeed all the way through into products like Leapfrog, where the data is being used and for interpretive modelling. And the streamlining thing's the same thing, right? You know, if we were streamlined all the way to the Reflex Hub IQ and then it stopped and someone had to go and download a file, well, that's hardly a seamless process, is it? So for us, a key part of our value proposition is to collaborate with groups like Acquire and with ARANZ, and we've really enjoyed being part of that experience. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the next step of the process is that, okay, so we've got all of this data coming in, and we need to make it available in the system so that it can be used for modelling. And we all know that there's more than one data set for a drill hole. There's all of this information coming in. And so that's the job of Gym Suite, is to bring together all of that information and consolidate it and integrate it so that it can be used for modelling. So here we're just showing a overview of a project, showing all of the statistics around it so that you can get a view into the information. So just to take a step back, consolidate and integration. So consolidation is bringing the data together and identifying it in its original form, and integrating it is presenting it in a form that it can actually be used. Because when you've got all of these different sources, you need to make sense of them. So you've got this information streaming in, so the next, you get notifications that, hey, there's some new stuff here. What do you do next? You've got to get get it validated. So here we're just showing some simple validations, and it's all about just trying to make sure that things match up, and you can't do this unless you've got all of the information together. So for example, you might be comparing geology and geophysics together so that you can make sure that things match up, okay? Also, you might be doing calculations to create new data sets for use in modelling. So from a gym perspective, the key points out of the key points for a gym system is this closed loop integration with partners such as Reflex, so that you can ensure the integrity of the information and that it's all there, it's complete and it's usable. It's also having the capability to integrate and consolidate that information so that it's all there and you can trust it. It's about having visibility into the process, and it's about having streamlined validation and verification of the information so that you can trust it. And finally, it's all about having efficient publishing systems so that you can create this kind of super highway of information into the continuous modelling system, which is that handoff across to Leapfrog to do that. So I'd like to introduce Lorraine to continue the discussion.
The information is now in Gym Suite, and we need an easy way to be able to get it into Leapfrog seamlessly. So in Leapfrog, there is a direct link allowing you to go in and select your data source right from Gym Suite, and then query out the drill holes and the tables that you require for your geological models. So here we are just showing how we can query out that information, and then we connect and we load the data into Leapfrog. So loading it into Leapfrog, we can then extract the drill hole information and construct our geological model implicitly. We can construct it using contact information, we can incorporate structural data, we can incorporate interpretations such as polylines and structural trends. Putting that all together, we get our geological model volumes, and these can then be saved into a project and uploaded onto a server. Now, most of the time you're saving a project and you want other people to be able to access it, to collaborate with you on it, and you want to be able to back up your projects as well. Now, normally you'd be saving onto a network server, and it's very difficult to be able to track those changes, to be able to access the correct file. Leapfrog Central is our latest product that allows for management of these models. So it allows you to log into a centralized server where all of the projects are stored and access any version of the project that is stored on there, access any project in time. You can access different types of models, so that includes geological models, interpolants, as well as block models. And those can be rotated around and viewed in 3D using the Leapfrog Central browser. So the real advantage of Leapfrog Central is not only that you can view all the different versions of the model, but you can also collaborate with others by way of using annotations. So in the browser, we can see here that we've got annotations from a user, possibly a Leapfrog user, or even an external reviewer. And they can annotate on a Leapfrog project directly in the 3D scene. So if they want to add in an interpretation for the Leapfrog user, they can type in their comment, type in their annotation, and then geotag it to locate it in the 3D scene so the person can find it later on. These annotations over here allow for a conversation between users. So going into Leapfrog now, we can go and access that version of the project. You can access any of the projects through time, download them locally, and then interpret or update the model directly in the 3D scene. So using that annotation over there, you can see that they're going into the drill hole data. They could load in new information. They could link to Jim's suite, do the update, and then it reprocesses the model. So now they need to be able to load this into the server, save it back. So they're able to publish it now. And when you publish the model, you want to be able to note what changes were made. So when you publish the model into Leapfrog Central, you select what version you want to save back, select what objects you want to save, and then you can save the model back into the server. And it saves with that particular date that you saved it, as well as the user who was logged in at the time. Comments can be written to describe what changes were made in that version of the project. So once the project is uploaded, it is now saved on the server, and any users or any people who can access Leapfrog Central can go back into the server, and they can view the changes made to the model, and they can also write additional annotations to continue the conversation. Now, the other advantage of Leapfrog Central is the ability to share outputs with others. So even people who are not Leapfrog users can export things out from Leapfrog Central, and that means that everybody is working from this single source of the truth. Once again, enforcing that connectivity between all of the different software types. So I'll just hand it back over to Steve now, and he'll have some closing comments.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rain. Yeah, so I suppose what we're showing there is that in the connected mine, in the scenario that we're looking at here, is that the connection is through the drill hole. So that's the common article that sort of goes through everything. And so what we're doing is we're working together around that drill hole, around the data, and from its birth right through to its use, and ensuring that that information flows from one end to the other. Now we know that, you know, we sort of look around the industry and we look at innovation and technology and all of those things, and there's a lot of bright and shinies around the connected mine and where we're going to get to. But hopefully through this we've shown that there's steps along the way, and this is the first step, and it's real, and you're able to do it now. And so by going through this going through these steps, you know, one day there we'll be able to reach that view and that vision of the connected mine. Thanks very much for joining us.